Welcome to the channel Drew. This is the Drew Review. My name is Andrew, and today we are going to be reviewing the Chaco Canyonlands Canyoneering shoe. So this shoe, the Canyonlands, is kind of an amphibious shoe. It's made for both being in the water and out of the water. The shoe has existed before, but this is a totally new redesign. And I was looking for a new wading shoe for guided rafting and fishing trips, and I thought a canyoneering shoe was kind of the way to go. So in general, canyoneering shoes are characterized by being grippy, good for hiking, fairly lightweight, and good for being in the water as well. So there were a few options out there, but I settled on these because they looked cool, the price was right, and I wanted to kind of take a gamble on them. I just used these for about 9 days, and that was how I got my testing data. I used them very intensively, and I found out a lot. I purchased them online from Chaco.com. The price is $110, which isn't crazy expensive, but it's also not cheap. They arrived quickly. Everything looked good. The shoe looks exactly as it is presented online. No tricks. And I think overall it's a pretty good looking shoe too. Aesthetically, it looks more like a modern sneaker, and I think it's the kind of shoe if you wore just around day to day, no one would notice, no one would look and be like, think anything of it. You know, the past Canyonlands shoe had more of that sort of leathery hiking shoe feel to it. This is very different. Anyway, let's talk about the fit. The first thing I noticed right after I put it on was it was too big for me. I wear a size 8, and my baseline is kind of Nike. And in Nike, a size 8 is very snug for me, but I like my shoes snug. Size 8 in this felt more like a size 9. My toes were swimming. They didn't touch the front. They didn't touch the sides in the toe box either. I was a little bummed about that. If I were to do it again, I definitely would downsize a half size or maybe even a full size for a better fit. Of course, everyone has differently shaped feet. My feet are fairly narrow, so these were seemingly designed for wider feet. That's why mine were swimming so much in the toe box. Behind the toe box, all the way back to the heel, the rest of the fit was really good. Laced up, I tried really tightening these laces in the front here to make the toe box a little more snug, but all it did was clamp down on the top of my toes, and it was really uncomfortable and actually hurt. I don't know that much about shoes, if you can lace it differently to help that, but anyway, a little bummed about the fit. Alright, so this shoe is made out of mostly mesh. That's what this kind of black and white is. It is a mesh. You can totally see through it if you look closely. And then the back part where the heel is, this is made of almost like a neoprene. Both, I'd say, are fairly comfortable. The mesh is uncomfortable if you're not wearing a sock, but with the sock, it's perfectly comfortable. The footbed, they call the Love Seat footbed. I think it has a removable arch. I haven't used that. It feels really good to me, but it's foam. It's solid, but there's a little cush to it. It's comfortable. We have this thick foam that's a lot thicker in the heel that you see in lots of modern sneakers. It's a real high density, kind of squishy, kind of reboundy foam. That's been good. That's been comfortable. I haven't had any issues with it. And then the actual sole itself is made of a fairly soft rubber. I'm assuming it's the same rubber that Chaco uses for their sandals. And we'll talk more about that and how it grips in a sec here. So I think something that's really important for me to mention are the issues I've had with this shoe. So we'll get that out front here. On day one, the laces started to fall apart. And that's a bit of a red flag, right? Surprisingly, they've actually held up, but they've started to fall apart, and they will need to be replaced soon. And that literally started on day one, which was disappointing. And it shows to me that Chaco is cutting corners a little bit by using cheap laces, or potentially they didn't test the laces, which is just a lack of effort. Maybe, I don't know. I was disappointed. Another thing that worries me that I haven't actually had an issue on yet is the mechanism in which you thread the laces. is these little fabric loops that are sewn into the shoe. I have had ski boot liners with laces that have the same fabric loop sewn in, and I can tell you I've busted through a lot of them, and it sucks because there's no way to lace your shoe after that happens. I'm just a little worried about that. I haven't actually had an issue with it yet, but I think there's potential for that to go wrong in the future. But the main issue I've had are these holes on the side in the mesh. And this is after 9 days. There are 3 holes, and fairly big holes, like stick your finger through it holes. They're wearing out very quickly. It's only 9 days of use and 3 holes. So I'm worried about the future of this shoe with me. I think it could fall apart much sooner than I would like it to. I don't know if the quality issues are lack of quality control, if it was just oversight, lack of testing, or me just using it much harder than what they intended the use case to be. But either way, it's incredibly disappointing. That's by far the biggest flaw about this shoe. I'm bummed about it. So now that we got those issues out of the way, let's talk about some of the good aspects of the shoe. Number 1 is grip. These things, initially, I was a little worried they wouldn't be that grippy because they don't really have that nice kind of like hiking shoe grip style sole that I was expecting. However, I was pleasantly surprised. This rubber and this more surface area with these pads with the really little striations is super grippy on dry rock. Super grippy. I felt like I could walk up a wall. In the water, they still did pretty well. Naturally, they're not as grippy. Almost nothing is as grippy when it's wet. And that makes sense, especially rubber. But they did pretty well. The only real issue I had with them in the grip was rocks that had algae and moss kind of covering them. When I would step on it, with the shoe that has more distinct parts that stick up more, I think it kind of cuts through that and then grips the underlying rock underneath. But with these, because it's flat, it doesn't get through that at all. You kind of just rest on top of it, and it remains really slippery. But I can't fault them too heavily because the performance on dry land and on non-mossy wet rocks is really, really quite good. As a wading shoe, they definitely gripped pretty well, but there's a lot more to a wading shoe than just the grip. So let's talk about a few of the other features. One feature that you see on purpose-built wading shoes quite a bit is a more protected sort of area around the toes. This has this little bit of rubberized mesh, but I would have liked to see something more like what they have right on the very toe, because when wading, you can't just go from rock to rock. You often have to slip between them to find a good solid base. And when that happens, your toes, the sides of your feet, can be subject to getting really jammed in the rock. So a little more protection around the toe area would have been very welcomed in my book. They're low top, which some people don't like for a wading shoe. Didn't bother me. Another feature I really liked are these little triangles, which you can kind of see, but there's little triangle cutouts in the toe box, and that's for drainage. It actually drains out these little holes on the side, and I think the drainage and the mesh was really good. Felt like they were mostly dry pretty soon after getting out of the water. But those triangles had another added benefit that I didn't foresee. They actually provided quite a bit of grip. As I mentioned earlier, I wear socks with these, and sometimes wet socks get kind of slimy and you can feel them sort of slide around in the bottom of the shoe. But those triangles, I felt, really helped my foot stay in place inside of the shoe, especially in the larger toe box where it was kind of loose. So that was a cool little added bonus. I think these shoes may have been intended for more casual use, hiking and crossing a few creeks, and not so much the intense brutality that I put them through, wading and rubbing them against rocks. But I'm not sure what the exact intended use for this is. To me, it seems like it's intended for more casual use, like hiking and getting a little bit wet while you're hiking, crossing creeks, walking in a creek for a little bit. I don't think they're intended for heavy wading that I'm doing. It's not the perfect fit for me for a wading shoe. I really wanted to love this shoe. I really did. It's It's really light. It's cool. It's good. It's grippy. But these quality issues with the holes and the laces, and that combined with the fit issues, I won't be buying these again. And I'm probably going to need to buy a new pair of shoes pretty soon here. It's a real shame. I wanted to love these, like I said. They're a good shoe for a good price, and they look cool, but they're not for me, for my use case. I think if you are going to use them a little more casually and you like them, get them. Definitely. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more reviews.